Welcome to Top of the Pods on the new Top of the Pods YouTube channel. And today we're talking about something that definitely is on a lot of people's top lists, whether it's top horror, top scares, one of the most iconic horror films and films in general of all time. We're, of course, talking about The Exorcist. And if you're asking what possessed us to talk about this, well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, this year is the film's 50th anniversary. We have a legacy sequel coming out for the first time in years. On October, we have Exorcist Believer. And then, unfortunately, we had the passing of its director, William Friedkin. So I'm joined today. I'm Tom from the Pop Cult Pod. And we have Jerry, of course, you recognize from the Irish Wrestling and Entertainment channel. And Phil from Deep Red Productions. Guys, we're talking about The Exorcist. It's getting that spooky time of year.
Yay.
I'm going to start with a bit of a strange question. What was our first experience with The Exorcist? It feels like everyone has a moment where it kind of jumped up in their childhood and that reaction. Anyone want to jump in on that?
I watched it very late, actually. For me, anyway. I definitely didn't watch it till about 2000 because I was just, I don't know, I was terrified growing up watching these horrors. And I'm grand, like, nowadays it's just like, yeah, whatever. But like, it's just, I don't know, I think it was about 2000 I watched it for the first time. And it was pretty scary on first watch.
Yeah, I grew up with it being banned. It was
Yes.
banned in Ireland for a long time. It was banned in our house for sure because, you know, the misconception that it was glorifying Satan, you know, in Irish in the 1970s and 80s, like, you know, you can't do that shit. So, you know, getting to see it at all growing up was near impossible. It was like normally pirated copies, or you had to find somebody in some house in the state you grew up in who had a copy, and we'd all sneak into his house and watch it. And I think that's how we ended up watching it when we were younger. Somebody had, I think their dad went to the Lebanon with the army and came back with the little pirate videotapes, and that was one of them, and we ended up watching it.
Yeah, he did Max von Sydow when it came back with
it. That's it, like he went on his trails and came back with it. And I think there were subtitles in it and everything, as far as I remember. I had no idea what age I was. I think that was one of the catalysts for me being obsessed with horror movies. I was watching that. I don't think I was scared of it, really. I was just intrigued with it, you know, because it was banned, and we're like, it was more don't get caught watching it more than get scared.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't even think of that perspective. We're in a very unique situation that we're in Ireland where it was banned for so long, and that totally forgot about that. Yeah, me growing up, it was like the only thing I ever remember seeing, like the first ever sight I had on The Exorcist was like those really shitty like jump scare things from the early 2000s, where like I can't remember, you hover over some dot or something and then fucking Reagan's face jumps out, and I'm like, okay, that's terrifying, all right. And then for years it was people who were, because I think The Exorcist, like its legacy and its reputation kind of precedes it. Everyone's like, it's the scariest film ever, you know, and all my friends were like, oh well, I've seen it, it's not that scary, as if it was some badge of honor, you know, when you're a kid. Like, but I'm kind of like Phil. I did not see this very late. I'll tell you how late I saw this. There is a video on my channel of the first time I saw The Exorcist, so it's in the last like 4 years.
Was it a watch along or just?
It was like a little video essay about whether it is the scariest film or is it more accurate to say it's the best horror. But it's a really interesting video. So I had a lot of like research and information on The Exorcist to go when we did it, so I was kind of delighted. But yeah, I mean, as far as my opinion on the film goes, again, I don't know, is it necessarily a scary film? But then again, it is also, you know, now it's half a century old. It's hard to look at any horror film and say, you know, because kind of culturally it changed. It's like, you know, people are probably scared of fucking Frankenstein, whereas you watch it now and you're like, come on, move. But, you know, I guess our opinions on it now, I mean, I do think it's one of the best horror films of all time for me, not necessarily in its how scary it is, but I think the theme and the subject matter and the production behind it is just absolutely fascinating. I actually studied exorcism in college, by the way, as part of a history course. So this is really interesting. Oh, I have to look up the name of that history
qualified
course.
To do exorcisms if we need you?
Well, you know, just in case, I have a bottle of holy water here in case anyone starts fucking feeling the demon, you know. But I don't know, what are your own opinions now, having revisited this? Like,
I think it's the most important horror film ever made. As much as I mean, I don't really, revisiting it, it's dated so badly. It just looks, the practical effects is what I love the most about it, to be honest with you. And also as well, for some reason, I I think I heard the song once when she was walking down the street, and I was like, as
Yeah.
growing up, I'd always thought that song was everywhere in that movie for some reason.
But that's everyone's reaction. That was my reaction the first time I saw it as well, because of course, like Tubular Bells, it's like the Exorcist music, and it's like I think they play it maybe once in the film, and it might be in the credits. I think it might be in there twice.
In the end,
there's like 3 seconds of it in the credits.
Yeah, it's literally in the
literally,
actual. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Doesn't it like start up the credits or something?
Yeah,
I can't remember, but like, yeah, it's weird. Like the scene that they actually play in the movie is not even scary. She's just walking, and it's like doo doo, and she's just walking around what looks like a lovely part of town. You know, like oh, okay, scary, but it's weird. That album is weird as well. If you ever want to go into a deep dive, by the way, that guy like recorded that album. Like every time there's a change in technology, he records it, and he like fucking has like 25 instruments looped over each other. The guy's a nutcase. But anyway.
If this film wasn't made at the time it was made, I don't think you wouldn't see Halloween and all these kind of things, because that pushed the boundary to what we know today, I suppose. They needed something to get to that boundary, because before that it was very, like Rosemary's Baby, they weren't kind of pushing, like they were horror, but they weren't pushing that next level.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is probably the most important horror movies ever made, because of the time it being banned in so many places, and people taking inspiration from it. Not just the special effects or the visual effects that they did with it, like, but obviously it hasn't aged. Like if somebody in their early 20s or in the teenagers watched it in this generation, they wouldn't be scared of it. They wouldn't even know what it's about, because religion isn't prominent in this country as it was. So in the 70s, religion was everything.
Every grandparent house had one of those big pictures of
Jesus,
Sacred Heart.
Still some houses have them. My parents still have theirs.
And Paul,
like back then, like I doubt that my parents would ever been allowed to go anywhere near, even mention the film. They would have been locked in the house, and holy water would have been poured on them. They, don't get it out of your head. You're not going watching that fucking film. Like, but it had such a big impact of being banned in so many countries. Like you see a lot of films like that that are banned. Like even if you go back to Reservoir Dogs or Natural Born Killers being banned in so many countries when they first came out. Like now they're cult classics. So Exorcist is kind of a cult classic in the horror genre, I think.
Like it definitely kind of pushed the boundary as far as like religious taboos and that kind of like, and I think that probably also goes like there's a couple of reasons that it's probably not as scary now as it was. I think like obviously, especially in Ireland, but in general, there was a lot more kind of religion in everyday life back then, and I think now that's kind of diluted. Like people were terrified of this film. Like if you watch like the reactions of this at the time in news reports, it's like it's like hysteria. It's crazy.
People and fainting, and ambulance being called to theaters and being on call for second screenings and stuff like that. They had ambulances ready to go. Like.
Yeah, it's mental. And like at the same point, like I think what we're all saying about like you couldn't show this as like I think it like, and it's weird to say this, but like when you go into like a video shop when they were a thing, or if you buy DVD places, they have like horror, sci-fi, action, and then there'll be just a section that's vaguely classics. I think that's kind of how you have to present it now.
Yeah.
Like if you're like horror, you can't like show someone this and then show them like fucking, I don't know, The Conjuring. They're going to be like, I don't get it. I don't get why they exist. And I think what's interesting as well, like I watched the documentary, I think a few of you did as well, with the Fear of God documentary that Mark Hamill made, which is the 25th anniversary. And he talks to the editor, and the editor even says, and this is 25 years ago, he's like, I think like by modern standards, it's actually very slow. And I'm like, man, if it was slow back then, 25 years later, it's probably even slower. And I do think like it is a very slow start to the film. And I think it's worth it and it pays off. But I think that would really turn off people who might be approaching it for the wrong time, expecting the wrong thing.
But go ahead, Phil.
I was just going to say, for me, there's a scene in it that really bugged me, where she goes to the hospital to do the same thing twice. Like that wouldn't be in any film today. They'd edit the shit out of that. Like that'll be gone.
Again, but like back then, like lobotomies were, electric shock treatment and all stuff were still happening in places like, in Ireland and all over the world. Like,
I think that's
therapy.
Like, yeah, I mean, and I think what you're touching on there is the realism of the movie, and like that's like this is basically like a bastard child of two fathers. Like it's William Peter Blatty who wrote the book and William Friedkin, and like if you don't know, Blatty grew up in like a crazy religious household, and like you get Friedkin, who was basically a documentarian for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and he has an eye for visual. So like the procedure that Reagan's getting is one he actually saw being done, and the people in that scene are actually doctors. One of which, by the way, actually ended up killing somebody in real life. That's it. If you want to get into the Exorcist curse, which I also have a video on. It's just really, that's why this film works. I think it's not because if it went outlandish and supernatural, you'd be like, okay, that works. But I think like the fact that it feels grounded in reality against the strange, unexplainable, and seeing the trauma of Chris like going through that is what makes that work for me. It's kind of actually more upsetting than kind of scary at times as a result of it, I think.
Yeah, again, like, because it's such a classic, the amount of films that inspired after it, like even in the 70s, like with The Omen and stuff, child possession or evil child films that have come and gone since then, like, that's the impact it had on the horror genre. Like, so you can't, not even if you just watch it for the first time, you think it's shit, like, but you have to go back and go over horror for the last 50 years of what it inspired.
I know we were talking about inspirations. That have you ever seen? There was, I think it was the year after The Exorcist came out. There was a blaxploitation ripoff of The Exorcist called Abby.
Abby,
and it was like the exact same thing, and like Warner Bros had to sue them for it. But it's mad. Like it was such a kind of cultural milestone, like straight away. Like it's crazy.
But you have to shout out as well for Linda Blair. Like for a child actress, even around that time, she was sensational in that. Like I would go as far as was there Oscar nomination or was there any? She should have been.
There was two Oscar wins actually. One's for screenplay and sound, but I think she won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, she's phenomenal in it.
Yeah, she got a lot of issues after it as well. Like
yeah.
I think the only reason she didn't get nominated I think she was nominated for Oscar, sorry, and she didn't win it because the voice was somebody else's voice. It did the demon voice.
Yeah, the voice. Oh God, is it Christine Dietz? Is her name? I think. So it's something Dietz. I think. Or is that the person who was a stand-in?
Mercedes McCambridge.
Oh, right. So Dietz was a stand-in they got for some of the scenes.
Yeah. She did. Yeah. No, she did. Didn't she do the crab or the spider walk?
She did. I think that might be a separate person altogether. I think like. Basically, I think Dietz was like someone who has the same dimensions and size, and she was like older. So when it came to like the crucifix masturbation scene, they like swapped her out. Or when they needed to do a slap, it was Dietz again. I think that was I think there might be another actress as well who does like the Pazuzu flash faces, with her in the film. Which I think if we're talking about the film, I suppose we should kind of talk about. There's two versions of this movie, and it's really fascinating that there is two versions, and that there is basically two versions that are both feel fairly in the kind of cultural conversation. So, like, I think it was in the early 2000s that we got it was the version you hadn't seen before, or the version you've never seen in theaters, or something like that.
I think it was about 2000, bang on, actually.
2000, I think, I think that was it, all right. And this was, I believe, about 13 minutes of extra footage. And basically it was when we got the original Exorcist, it was the director's version. It was what Friedkin wanted. Basically, Blatty was like, what about these scenes? And he was like, no, I don't think those work. And there is other examples of that in the film where, like, for example, the version we haven't seen before in theaters has the spider walk scene, which is like, become crazy obsessed and connected with the film, even though it was something that came in after. And I suppose that probably helps in the fact that if it was banned in so many places, some people might have seen this version first.
Yeah.
And that could be why. But like apparently that was cut. There's a scene where the two priests are talking about why God would do this, and the ending is slightly different as well. Yeah. And basically over the years, Friedkin has been like, you know what, his version is the better version. So it's really interesting, like a director's cut was the original film, and then the director saying, actually, you know what? The better version is not my cut. It's just, it's very rare.
Wasn't there a scene as well where the sound was lost? Where they're talking. The mother are talking and there's no audio. Yeah. And they couldn't find the audio for whatever reason.
It's actually it's really interesting, a lot of those scenes in general. Like even the spider walk scene, that was rumored for a long time before it was discovered. Like basically, they didn't think it had been. Some fans were like, it doesn't exist. There's no proof it hasn't been filmed.
Yeah,
There was kind of debate of whether it ever existed, and I think when Kermode was making the documentary, he came across it, and it kind of made Friedkin go back to it. I do want to talk about the spider walk scene in general because I want to ask if you guys feel it should be included or shouldn't be included. The first version I ever saw had it in it, and I kind of see the argument for it being cut because I think originally it was cut for a number of reasons, but one reason was that visually they couldn't get it to look right, like the wires, they couldn't digitally erase them. Yeah, and then years later they were able to do that easily. I kind of feel like it does feel like a big escalation from kind of ratings condition at that point. I don't know, does it feel like it comes too soon? And does feel way more kind of over the top than other parts of the film. I don't know what you guys think. How do you feel about the Spider-Walk scene? I mean, it is iconic and it is fantastic, obviously. But it is. How do you feel?
It is. It's synonymous with the film because of, like I said, it was in 2000, like, and all this stuff happened, and the internet came along, and that Spider-Walk scene probably blew up after that. But in context of the story of the film, it doesn't really have any place in it because she's in bed the whole time. If she's able to crab walk or spider walk down the stairs as the demon with the demon face on, like, what happens after that? Like, how did the mother get her back to bed?
I've never actually thought about it like that, but yeah, that makes.
How did the mother get her back into bed? If she was the demon, she was possessed at that stage, surely they would have just
it just kind of does a cut, almost like a cut to black. It's like and then it's like
I know, yeah. What happened? What happened? How did she get her back into bed?
It's almost like a scene where it would happen at the very end, isn't it? Like that's the last movie.
Like if that was like, do you know what would have been awesome, right? Fucking, they walk into the house to preach for the first time, getting ready, and then she does the spider walk down the fucking stairs. Exactly. Then you're like, oh shit.
And it would have made sense then because I know you haven't seen the second film, but part of the story of the second film is she's not fully recovered. There's still part of the demon inside her, so that could have been a nice way to transition into the sequel. Like they could have left it, cliffhanger and gone. And the sequel was like a year later. I think it was like a year or two later. So they could have easily just cut that into the end and just like, well, let's make a sequel. Just have everybody want to go and see the sequel.
Yeah, I mean, we've got. I suppose when we're talking about the spider walk, we're kind of talking about some of the effects in the film in general. Like, how do you feel like the effects in the movie hold up? Like they were 50 years later now. So this is 4 years before kind of Star Wars changed effects in special effects wise. There's not really many visual effects in this. The only thing I heard is that like the vomit is a little bit touched up. They matted it apparently.
That was like pea soup or something.
It was pea soup, and apparently like they had like a pump going through the person's mouth, and it was kind of like spraying, kind of like, and they were like, yeah, that's perfect. And then the director saw it, and he was like, no, that's not perfect. That's not what I want. And they had to go in and like mat it on the film and stuff, to make it look a bit thicker.
But it wasn't supposed to hit him in the face, that, right? It was supposed to hit him in the chest, and it misfired and went straight into his mouth.
You're opening a very dangerous can of worms there, Jerry. If you want to do like the stuff that shouldn't have happened. On
a lot of stuff shouldn't have happened on that set, but that was one of the worst.
Friedkin was very rough back then. Like, I mean, fucking Ellen Burstyn got yanked across the floor and damaged her back.
For life,
Linda Blair got really fucked up. They were yanking her back. Something snapped. Yeah. Apparently now he has come out like since and said like he would never have done what he did like back then now, and they can't seem to have forgiven him. So I'm not trying to cancel a dead director. But
the slaps her mother, that was real. They were all.
He also slapped a priest on set, and that really pissed people off. Which if you're religious, I could see what that would do it. I suppose.
Well, he was the other priest who was on in the film. He was
an actual priest.
Yeah, he was there as a consultant that make sure everything was done to.
And it does speak to the realism in general. He was talking about how he cast Father Karras like Jason Miller. Yeah, he was basically like, they were like, hey, what about this actor? What about this actor? And he was like, he basically wanted a priest who can act. He said, so it's like, that makes sense. Yeah, but I mean, like when it comes to the effects, a lot of it is practical. We're talking about. Sometimes there's kind of puppetry and strings, the bed movement and the props movement and all kind of thing. What I wanted to talk about was the head spin. There's a lot of people who have kind of a mixed opinion on the head spin in general, for a couple of reasons, because you can kind of interpret it a few different ways. Some people are saying like, oh, well, if the film is grounded, that's kind of the only thing that would totally break, the fact that she can do that. Other people are saying that's meant to be the kind of point of view of the priests, and that they're so terrified that that's what they imagine
what they
happened.
see. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
So I
actually
don't know how, like, the head spinner is probably one of the most iconic images in the whole thing. How do you feel about, like, does it have a place? Is it okay that it's in the film? Does it kind of break your immersion any bit? How do you feel about
I think it's the same thing, like where I think the priest it's in his head. That's what I thought. Like, because again, she should be dead, her neck would be broken, even though she is possessed. You know what I mean? Like her neck would snap in half and she'd be dead. But what bugged me about the whole thing there with that is there was way too much smoke in it. Did you
it?
notice there was way too much kind of smoke at one point?
A lot of fog and mist and
Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah, I don't
bit
know.
overdone. I think it was.
Well, it
They
was
also
like,
said it was a really cold. Was it actually a
it was
refrigerator
a
or something?
refrigerator. Yeah, they had it. They were like minus fucking. I think they were like minus 20 or something Fahrenheit or Celsius, whatever the American one is. Not our minus 20, like where not the, but it was enough to make them fucking freezing and get sick on set. Oh,
yeah. I mean, if we're talking about I think if we're talking about like any of the effects, like the old age makeup on Max von Sydow is like phenomenal. Like you see, like I remember seeing that and I was like, "There's no way he could have been that old." Because I'm like, I saw him in Force Awakens as well, and I'm like, he can't be an old man then and now. Like how old, like it looks scarily accurate to what he actually looks like. It's really impressive.
Like I'm 42, I'm going to be 43 in January, and he was 44 when he was in that role. Like I was like, mental. What? How is that possible?
It's
like
mental. Like, oh, it's good though. But yeah, like I think we're definitely kind of giving the thumbs up to the movie.
Oh yeah.
Even though it might have problems to an audience of seeing it for the first time now, maybe going in with the wrong expectations, obviously. Do we have any thoughts on? I mean, I guess we'll talk first about the Legacy sequel, whatever we're calling these now, with Ellen Burstyn returning for the first time in 50 years to the role, the Exorcist believer. Obviously, at this time of recording, has not come out. We're about 3-4 weeks out from it. What are our thoughts on this? David Gordon Green, who obviously gave us the Halloween reboots. There's an insane amount of money, by the way. I don't have the figure in front of me. Peacock and NBC spent was it like 200 million just to get the rights to make these movies? And you look at how much money these movies had made ever, and you're like, are you fucking crazy? There's no way you can make that much money back.
And the thing is, as well, we're oversaturated with these movies as well. Like the Conjuring movies and the Nun and all these things. There's way too many of them, so it's going to be very difficult.
It's very hard to make a possession movie that hasn't been kind of done to that. It kind of feels like The Exorcist kind of broke the mold. Like
that film he's recommended to me there, Spiderweb. Was it Spiderweb? Cobweb. That's only recently out, and
I thought it was a supernatural film. I really did. It's not.
It is oversaturated though. There, I think
but
Jordan Peele is a lot to answer for.
The Nun as well. The Conjuring, the last Conjuring movie was not good. It's just so much.
There is too much, but that's always been like that. Again, we go back far enough to the 70s whenever The Exorcist had come out. So many studios wanted to jump on board and get this big fucking blockbuster horror movie out so they could make a fortune on it. Like they thought they could go one better than The Exorcist, and they all tried.
The only thing going for the new one is that it's two girls, and that's a new take.
I mean, I'm not hopeful, but I also feel like it kind of feels like at this point they have nothing to lose with the Exorcist movie. Like there's some movies where it's like, oh, you're going to tarnish the legacy. It's like
that's long tarnished.
If The Exorcist 2 didn't do that, and all the shite sequels didn't do that. And by the way, I want to also amend the figure I said was 200 million. They spent 400 million to get worldwide rights to an Exorcist trilogy.
Yeah.
So there's a chance we could be getting 3 more of these. Now, we're actually going to talk about Halloween on my channel, the David Gordon Green version, along with the other ones. And again, I kind of liked his first Halloween film. So I'm hoping that this will at least be good. But also, I'm like, 3? Like, dude, you're doing well if you get 1 good one out of here. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't know. I will say, though, as much as I'm bashing them, I've never seen any of the Exorcist sequels, mainly because I would have to watch all of them. And Exorcist 2, The Heretic, is genuinely considered one of the worst movies, the worst sequel pretty much of all time. I have a copy of The Exorcist 3 over there, which I've heard is apparently quite good. Laddie actually directed that one as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
and
think
we were,
The Omen 2, if you've ever seen the Omen movies, the second
yeah,
Omen movie is probably the best horror sequel
really.
going. It's phenomenal. It's got one of the best opening sequences of
That's
any
interesting now
horror movie.
because again, Omen is one that I kind of put in the same category as The Exorcist, where it's like it's acclaimed and it's loved, and it's the first film, and then the sequels, people are like, you can skip them. It's kind of like like
Mm,
Jaws is kind of like that as well,
yeah.
where it's like, have you seen the first Jaws? Good, don't bother. Even though I'm sure if you went and watched some of them, you'd be like, yeah, that's not bad.
The second one isn't. It's not a bad film. Like it's
Yeah,
just
it just
there's
has
no.
it's a misfortune of following one, so a very
It's
fucking
just
high bar.
they're just studios. It's just usual. Like you can tell when a studio's cashing in on
Mm.
success of a first film,
Yeah.
and it's not something that was already planned out. Like when someone's written as a trilogy, like just I'm not saying Lord of the Rings, even though they were around for a long time before the movies, like,
Yeah.
but they were written as a trilogy, so they weren't cashing in on like the fucking what do you call it, The Hobbit. That was a
Yeah.
cash in. Like they knew they were going to cash in. There was no reason they make fucking so many The
Yeah,
Hobbit movies. Like
they were making a movie and not a franchise. Like,
yeah,
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 exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we were just talking before the mics went on as well about like we were talking about the Exorcist sequels, and like the really weird case we were talking about is the fourth and the fifth Exorcist. So the Exorcist, the beginning, and then there was Dominion prequel to the Exorcist. They came out a year between each other. So the first one they made was basically, it was Paul Schrader who wrote Taxi Driver,
Taxi
and
Driver. Yeah,
directed plenty of good films. Well, he first performed a few years ago. That was very good. Um, he basically made the film. They were like, "This is terrible. We can't release this." And then they gave it to Rennie Harlan to reshoot. So he reshot most of the film with the same lead actor in Stellan Skarsgård and a new cast. Um, and then basically that came out, flopped critically and commercially. So they went back to Schrader and were like, "Hey, make your version again. Finish your version." So he finished his version. It came out like in a very small release and also was shite and flopped. People were like, "It's slightly better."
How did Asgard have a fucking
Oh,
Hollywood career after that,
Yeah.
Jesus, I mean,
and the
if
rest of his
that
family?
if that happened now, like heads would be fucking rolling at that studio. Like
But that
it's
would ruin
and
everybody's career in the movie. Like
yeah,
if
I
you would
mean,
never see them again. Like even Linda Blair, like coming and being in the second one, like she's never been in anything really.
it's just so funny that they were like a year. Yeah, people probably forgot about how bad that last one was a year
A
later.
year, probably less than a year when they decided to throw it out.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether
Jesus.
did it make it into the cinema or was it just a
It
straight?
says it had a limited release, but
Yeah.
I'd only ever heard of it getting like a kind of a Blu-ray release. So
Mm.
it says here, Blatty found it much better. So I guess Blatty was happy. So that's good. But aside from that, there was an Exorcist TV series, which I heard was good, but no one was aware it was a thing, really, if we're
I
honest.
didn't even know it was out.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like people were like, they're making a TV series to the Exorcist, and it was like, really? And then they're like, yeah, it got cancelled. You're like, what the fuck? I didn't even know. But apparently, it does follow up on like some of the possession. I think there is mentions of some of the characters in it. Maybe, definitely, I think Pazuzu the demon has a presence in it. But again, it was 2 seasons on Fox, so like, and I don't know. I don't know about how a movie like that kind of adapts to television. It would be an interesting one. It says follows two priests investigating possible cases of demonic possession and performing exorcisms. I'd like to point out at this time that it's a Fox series with two people investigating supernatural stuff who also made the X-Files. So that's what they were hoping for, obviously.
Is it out? It's out already. Is it? Was it out?
It came out like it started in 2016. I think
Really?
it went for 2 seasons, and I heard it was quite good, but it didn't really seem to go anywhere. Yeah, it ended in 2017. So but yeah, like the character of Reagan is in it. Grown up, Gina Davis plays Reagan. Like,
Really?
yeah. So it's like and
Nice.
there's interesting stuff. Like Pazuzu, the character, is in it as well. Like the demon. Like, so I don't know. It seemed like there was something going on with it, but I
Check.
don't know.
I might actually look at it.
Maybe it's 20 episodes. It might be. We might be
Yeah.
back here next Halloween talking about the Exorcist TV series.
Maybe we'll be back next week. Maybe we'll watch it next week and we'll just come back and
Maybe,
watch
yeah.
it.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that, is there anything we kind of want to add to talk about the legacy of the Exorcist? Really, it feels like we've kind of
Any
greatest,
interesting trivia about the movie that we didn't bring up? Maybe things like Jack Nicholson was too unholy looking to play a priest. He wasn't cast. He didn't want him to be the Exorcist. He was too unholy looking, and that was in 1973. Like,
Imagine
I would say,
Jack.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it definitely is a very different film with Jack Nicholson, isn't it? Like,
He'd be
you'd
more
be looking at
possessed
it.
than anybody.
Yeah, I was going to
But
say,
like,
yeah, he'd crack a smile and he'd be like, "Oh fuck, he's possessed now."
who was the other actors they wanted in the lead role for the mother? There was a few names.
Um, one of them
Um,
was Anne Bancroft. Anyway,
Yeah,
I can't remember who the other ones were, but yeah, there was like I was like Audrey Hepburn was one of them as well. I think.
I think
that would be
was
interesting.
she?
Yeah, I think so.
And I
Um,
think what's that girl's name? She's 80s and she's 80 something. She always looks young. Jane Fonda.
yes,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
she sent back a snotty letter to the studio or something where she was like, "I wouldn't be part of this capitalist propaganda" or something like that, where she was going through her Hanoi Jane phase or whatever. So yeah, so she was like, "No way."
Is that before or after the
I'm
workout?
laughing now. Oh yeah, Jesus, yeah. That capitalist propaganda is all right. That's keeping people fit, you know. But yeah, aside from that, it seems like when you look at the trivia, it's basically like he got someone's got sick in his face for real and stuff like
Well,
that.
the author actually, the trivia about the author, William Blatty, he won 10 grand on a Groucho Marx TV show. And when he was asked at the end of the show what he wanted to do with money, he was going to take some time off to write a novel. And he wrote this novel.
Oh,
All we can think of are the pyramids. The pyramids is right. That's right. You just won a total of $10,000. Now, what are you going to do with all that money? It's going to finance me to finish the next book. Oh, that's wonderful.
And it turned out to be The Exorcist, which is cool. Like,
that's mad. There's a really interesting stat here I'd never heard. And again, this is IMDb's trivia, which sometimes citation needed.
Anybody can write that.
Yeah, the highest grossing Warner Brothers film of all time when adjusted for inflation.
Okay.
That sounds crazy. I'd love to know.
Inflation.
I'd love to know if it was true. That's the thing with inflation. But I'm also
Something's
like,
been inflated there.
yeah, they could have put out like fucking Gone with the Wind or something, and like, who knows it now? I'll blow everything out of the water. Yeah, yeah. William Friedkin thought he was too unholy to play a priest. Jack Nicholson.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
mad.
He actually shot a gun right next to what's his name? The priest, William, or what's his name? Jason Miller.
Oh yeah.
He fired a gun right next to his ear and filmed his reaction to get a reaction of shock.
That would do it. Anyway, that would do it. You're like,
you don't get away with that stuff these days. He brought a live gun to the set, like.
That's pure like 70s, like you're like, oh, like, it doesn't matter, I'm an auteur. Like that wasn't like the French Connection. He just drove down a real street for some of that shit. Right?
Yeah, he directed
yeah.
the French Connection. Yeah.
Wes Craven used to do stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get away with that now, but man, did bring us some great movies, including this one, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that kind of puts a bow on this discussion of the Exorcist, guys. I suppose aside from that, anything we want to say, anything we want to plug?
Phil, what have you got coming up? What's happening this weekend?
I suppose this weekend is Spook Screen. We are going to be showing a lot of short movies from all across the world, including Irish shorts. Kicking off tomorrow, because we record this Thursday night, the 21st. So tomorrow at the Waterworks for Culture Night, there's a lot of shorts kicking off, and tickets are actually free tomorrow. So if you want to hop along and see some shorts and in a cool venue, the Waterworks.
So just for anybody who's watching, like if they don't know what Spook Screen is, it's an annual horror film festival, basically.
Do you know what it is? It's Ireland's only horror film festival.
Exactly.
Which is bizarre that we don't have any more across the country. And what's really frustrating is the funding is very limited for something like this, and it's the only, like, it all comes off our own backs. Like, we're doing all this ourselves, so it's just trying to push it out and trying to get people to kind of get awareness about it, I suppose.
Yeah.
There's like, because obviously we all have our own film and stuff, so we're up the walls doing all that, but it's just mad to see people come together for horror.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Sunday should be good.
And then Saturday and Sunday we're in the Kino, showing some more features and shorts and madness, I suppose is the best way to put it. There's some wild ones in there. But it'll be good fun.
And you've watched nearly all of them.
Yeah, to be fair, now and I was just talking to you earlier about this. There's about 250 short entries, narrowed down to about 60, 70, which is the most we've ever had. So it's pretty.
And is there going to be one overall short winner, or is it?
Yeah. There'll be best effects and best actors and I suppose actually we have categories: best act, roar,
That drawer.
actress,
Excellent.
beast of fest.
Well, it sounds brilliant.
Like,
Like, for anybody who has never been to it, or anybody's watching this, it's annually, so it'll be back
it's
next year.
annually, but the thing is, like, usually we would have guests over, but with everything going on, it's very difficult. Yeah. Usually, like last year, we had the creeper, Jonathan Breck. He was over. He's such a cool guy.
So many jokes I just could have squeezed in there before you before you said it was. You had the creeper over. I'm like,
Yeah,
Malcolm.
Did you have Malcolm McDowell on, or he was?
He gave the video message.
Yeah.
So,
like, lads, if you're in Cork next year, if you're not here in time this year for it, it's on every year. September in around the second or third week of September every year. So keep an eye out for it. Follow them on social media, Spook Screen, on Facebook and X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and keep an eye out for it for next year, because it's going to be a phenomenal weekend. Like, if you're into horror movies, and they're not, it's all short horror movies. You can get in, get out, go.
I think they're about an hour long each program.
Yeah.
And there's probably like 6 or 7, maybe 8 in each one. But yeah, the hard thing is to make the booklet and make the movies kind of compatible. You don't want too many of the same sort of thing, because there was one time there we were getting, I think, half of our entries and all the films are almost the same team. Time loops were a big one a few years back. It was like every second film was a time loop film. It was just the what was in at the time.
It was popular at the time because of fucking Doctor Strange.
Yeah, so, and then we were dreading then when COVID came, because we were going, oh God, it's going to horror movies. But no, it wasn't.
Oh my God, it's a slasher on Zoom again. Brilliant.
that kind of thing. Friend Zone and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that film. What was that film?
God,
Friend, is it?
Friend Request, was it?
Friend Request.
Something
like that.
There's a few of them.
There was one there was Searching as well, or is it, what was that other one called?
Missing.
Something like that. Missing, yeah.
Yeah.
Social Network. Oh no, that wasn't a horror film. It was just bad.
That was the horror of real life, Gary.
He is the creeper.
No, it's just cool to meet people like that would come over. Like Patrick Bergen's been there.
That's right. You had him in Spike Island, didn't you?
And
did you do the Prisoner of Azkaban on Spike? Was that somebody else?
That was us, yeah. Yeah, that was us. We had Liam Cunningham as well.
That's right, yeah, from Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah, we showed Dog Soldiers.
Brilliant.
I remember being gutted I couldn't get to that screening.
Yeah.
That was actually the most successful one we did. I was completely sold out.
Wow.
Yeah, we need stuff like that. It's just very difficult when you can't get the proper guests that you want. Like, we had a few names over the years that fell through, and I was like, if we got this person, it would have been brilliant.
You want to get yourself David Arquette now. That's who you want.
Oh yeah.
Do a Scream Festival.
I do. The thing is, you'd be surprised how much they'd cost.
I can imagine.
We've gotten fair with a few people, but it's just the end of the day, the prices were just ridiculous. You're talking over 20 grand for some of them. And that then you're talking food and flights and
accommodation, and
it's not feasible for a festival like us. So we're kind of relying on people going to the screenings, and obviously Film Freeway. We use Film Freeway when the films come in, so you can submit through Film Freeway, and then all that payment will go towards getting locations and all that kind of stuff.
Tom, are you going to be making any films in the near future?
I'm not making any films. I'm definitely making a lot of good horror videos. Hopefully, I'm knee deep in some massive plans for October on the channel. I have one video filmed, which I'm trying not to say everything in case I don't get out, because as always, my grasp on my ambitions never match my talent and time. Mm-hmm. But one of the videos I have filmed that I'm editing at the moment kind of brings me back to the very first year I started making videos. I have a lot of stuff planned with some slashers. I'm hoping to announce stuff pretty soon as I get a better idea. Of course, I'm going to have you guys on for a Halloween video in a minute. And yeah, aside from that, I guess we're back here on Top of the Pods to talk about slasher reboots.
Yeah.
Can we say that? Is that
We
fair?
can.
Yeah.
We can let everybody know of last year's slasher films top 10. We're going to be watching the remakes or reboots of them,
Remakes, reboots,
just to see how
repos,
they hold up after talking about all the reboots of
Yeah.
fucking The Exorcist.
Yeah, and I suggested that, so we might not be back for another episode. They might all hate me and never talk to me again after going through.
And what's after this? Pre-boots? Is that where we're going to be next? Pre-boot?
Jesus, reboot with a new cast. Out, Tom, get out.
Somebody will be sitting in your seat pretending to be Tom.
That's all right. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'll just watch on the sidelines.
Lads, like we said at the start of the show anyway, this is going out. This is on our new channel. Please subscribe to the new Top of the Pods channel. Not only will we be doing our monthly podcast top 10 lists or whatever it is, we'll also be covering, like we said, we're going to be in the Kino on Sunday for the spook screen, so we're going to be getting some content for the channel. We'll also be doing music interviews. We're going to go see some live bands, interview some bands. If anybody wants to join us, come along. This Wednesday, a brand new friend will be playing in Cork this at the Conway's Yard. Now it's called Conway's Yard now. It's just beside the Grand Prix car park. So they're there on Wednesday evening. So we're going to be interviewing them maybe after their gig on Wednesday evening. And we've got a couple other bands lined up who are going to be coming along for interviews. So, you know, we're expanding the channel. We'll be doing as much, you know, content as we can just to keep it growing. So keep an eye out for all new content on the brand new Top of the Pods YouTube channel.
I got something for you. Ready? The power of Christ compels you to like and subscribe.
And on that note, Tom, Phil, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in October for our slashers. And please subscribe to Tom's Pop Cult channel. We're going to be doing a Halloween special instantaneously. Bye, guys.